short demo tonight, we'll be going through drypoint. So drypoint is part of a larger group of printmaking called intaglio. So I-N-T-A-G-L-I-O, intaglio, which literally means to incise. So intaglio covers drypoint, it covers etching, engraving, mezzotint, colograph. Those are major ones. And it's pretty much the opposite of what we've been doing up to this point. So in relief printing, you have a block, you carve away or cut away anything you don't want inked and ink up the surface. Here, whatever you scratch into the plate will ink up. So it's closer to drawing.
Mm-hmm. You can get more detail, I feel like.
Yeah, you get finer lines, I suppose, depending on how you do it. You get fine lines in relief too, if you're careful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's closer to drawing. Color.
That's cool. Huh.
So typically we use a press for intaglio. During the pandemic, when I was teaching online, we actually printed just with, just like hand printing, how you do here. We used a really heavy caster wheel from like a cart, a steel one, something really heavy, and just rub the back of the paper. Nice roll of toilet paper in here. Cross hatching is really nice. So similar to relief print, at least when you're dealing with line etching and drypoint, you have to think in terms of the line. So you can't do continuous gray tones like you do in drawing, for example. You can control the value of the line to a certain extent by how deep you make your lines in your plate or block. So the deeper the line is, the more ink it's going to hold, and the darker the line is going to be.
That's good.
Leave it out for you to look at. So traditionally, intaglio is done on metal plates. So I have aluminum here. I also have a couple pieces of copper. Some of the earliest examples of intaglio were done on iron plates, way back in the day, like 1500s, because that's what they had available. Some researchers think that intaglio and like line etching came from armor making. So people would scribe into armor, like make designs and decorations, and to make a record of their work done on the armor, they would fill the lines with charcoal or an ink, and then take a piece of paper and do a rubbing, and that'd be the record of their work on the armor. And then someone along the way decided that the work has a printing plate. So the first ones were done in iron. Unfortunately, iron rusts. So, and we print with damp paper. So we soon switched over to copper. It's kind of a traditional medium. Copper is really expensive, so we don't do it too much at the university anymore. We switched over to aluminum, which is a lot cheaper. You can also use things like plexiglass. So I think you can scratch into. I just did a workshop when we used milk cartons. So anything you can scratch into and ink up, I can print. So I do have plates here for you to try tonight if you want. I only have 2 etching needles though, because the students at the university right now are using them. So I have to share so they can work on things in between. So this is a scribe or an etching needle. It's hardened steel. It works really well for this. You can use other things. You can get a mechanics scribe, a nail, anything that's hardened steel. Aluminum and copper and epoxy are soft, so they're easy to scratch into. So any kind of hardened tool will work. And then you have your little plate, and you start working with it. So again, you have to think in terms of lines. So cross hatching to build up blacks, and the deeper you carve into it or scratch into it, the darker the light's going to be. You can do really fine light lines to get a variety of different tones. Probably hard to see on the camera.
Mm.
So we're doing dry point. Dry point, you're working directly into the plate, just like I've been doing right here. Something like line etching, use chemicals to create your lines. So you cover your plate in a resist and then scratch through the resist and then put it in a chemical bath, and then the line will get eaten away. With dry point, it's more physical, so you really have to use a little bit of force to get some deeper lines in. It has a kind of a distinctive line to it. It's kind of a fuzzy, almost charcoal kind of line. When you do dry point, when you scratch into the plate, you don't remove that much metal or material. What you do is you force the material on either side of the line, so you get a line with a burr on it, and that burr will create that fuzzy line. If you do like a chemical etching, you get a nice clean straight line. So, but we're not set up to do etching here, so dry point is what it is. Also with dry points, you have a limited number of impressions. The more we print, the more the image on the plate gets worn away. Something like etching, again with chemicals, you get the image more into your plate, so you can do a larger addition. Dry point, depending on what you do, you might end up with an addition of 5 before it starts wearing down. Especially if there's a lot of fine detail, so keep that in mind. So just like relief, it's good to reverse. So if you do text, it has to be mirror image, so that stays the same. But again, whenever we scratch into the plate, we'll ink up and print. We use different kind of ink. I'm going to use Akua ink, made by Speedball.
What kind of ink?
Akua.
Kua.
Akua.
Kua.
A-K-U-A. Akua.
Aqua.
Aqua. So it's a soy-based, water-soluble intaglio ink. Traditionally, intaglio ink tends to be oil-based. I still use oil-based ink when I work with intaglio. This stuff's pretty good. It's getting better. When it first came out, like 20 years ago, there was no pigment in it, so you ink up, and if you wanted a black, you just get a gray. But they've improved it since. So it works great for dry point and line etching. For other things like mezzotint and aquatint, where you have continuous tone, that's still kind of gray, not as rich. Nice thing about this though, it cleans up really easily. So we wonder.
That's a bonus.
Yeah. So we could use that.
What is that called, dry point again?
Because it's a dry process, you're not using any chemicals.
Oh, no chemicals.
No chemicals. So to apply it onto our plate, we're not going to use a roller or a brayer. We're going to card it on with little pieces of mat board. Put a little bit on your card, and then you want to, again, on the table is easier. I'll try to do it like this to show you. So you're just using the card to force the ink into the grooves that you've made. like so. So we start off, your plate will look like this. You can try to remove some excess if you want. And then we're going to wipe the plate with this stuff. So this is called tarlatan. It's basically cheesecloth with starch in it. And this is the official wiping material of etching plates and intaglio plates.
What's it called?
Tarlatan, so
Oh.
T-A-R Latin.
Yep, I got it.
All right,
Close
good.
enough.
If you don't have access to this, some people use tulle, like they use for dresses. That works pretty well. This is actually pretty expensive for what it is, and you have to get it through like a specialty store. And again, it's cheesecloth with some starch in it. Cheesecloth on its own is too soft, so you need something, the starch kind of gives it a bit of a, just makes it a little bit stiffer, easier to work with. So you can use that. We can even use just newsprint for the most part, it'll probably be okay. In Japan, when they wipe plates, they use silk, which is quite lovely. We don't have that. So I got some tarlatan here, so use that. And then you gotta wipe. So I usually put a piece of newsprint underneath, and then I wipe the plate. So some people use a twisting action. Some people kind of do more of a wiping action like that. It's really a personal preference. So inking an intaglio plate or dry point plate takes, I find, a little bit more time than rolling up a relief plate. It's easy to overwipe or underwipe. So you have to be a bit careful. It takes experience, like everything else. So reach this stage when the plates, you can kind of see my image there. But it's still kind of smudgy. That's where you want to stop with the tarlatan. It's easy to overwipe with the tarlatan. And then you want to switch over some newsprint and do kind of a final polish. So again, on the table, but this is what I'm doing. Thanks. I don't know if everyone can see that. This side hasn't been wiped with the newsprint yet, so it's a little smudgy. And this one's clean on that side. So when you're finished wiping, you should still have a little bit coming off your newsprint. If your newsprint's totally clean, probably means you overwiped it. It's a general rule of thumb. Because your plate won't be completely clean. If you notice that some of these prints, most of them have this kind of overall gray. That's called plate tone. It's sort of characteristic of intaglio printing. Because the material that you carve into or scratch into has a grain to it, and that'll hold a certain amount of ink. If you can polish it and get rid of that plate tone, but
So what did you say the newsprint should look?
newsprint should
still have
have
some ink on it.
Yeah.
Should look smudgy, sort of.
still have like a little. This is like my final wipe here. Should still have a little bit coming off even at the very end. If you keep on wiping and it's completely clean, probably means you overwiped. General rule of thumb. In that case, your image will be kind of on the light side. So this ink, this wash with water, you have time to work with it though, so it's not going to dry up right away, so don't worry about trying to speed through it. Usually, not always, sure there's exceptions, we print dry point on damp paper. I'm gonna use Somerset paper, a little cotton rag paper. You could also use a washi. And just like when you did chin clay, I'm gonna spritz it and put it in the garbage bag for a little bit. The reason why we use damp paper is we want to soften the paper. So when we print it and put pressure on the paper, it's soft and goes into those grooves we've made. If your paper is too stiff, then it won't get into those grooves. So that's why we dampen the paper. So give it a spritz. You can probably do that before you ink up. So spritz it, put it in the bag, during inking, get it wiped, then you can take your paper out. So we're printing really small. The reason why we're doing that is we're going to use this tiny little press. Big man holding a little press.
It's cute.
I know. So this was given to me by Dawn Rubel. She's a local artist. And she got it from the two artists. They formed an open press project. So they're from Germany, and their goal is to make printmaking more accessible to everyone. Because there's usually a bunch of equipment you have to buy, and presses are expensive. So they came up with this 3D printed press that they designed. So you can go on their website, and you can order one. I'm pretty sure you can order plans, so if you have access to a 3D printer, then you can do the printing, and then assemble it yourself.
What are they called again?
I think it's Open Press Project. I'll double check after on my phone, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. They also have print exchanges. They have little miniature print exchanges, so for people who buy their presses, I think it's annual. So you can do little mini print exchanges, it's kind of cute. They came up with a new model that actually has a metal top roller. So it's more durable. It works fairly well. So I'm going to take our plate, put it face up on the press bed. When we go to the university, you'll see a larger version of this. And so they cut our budget, and everyone will be working to an artist. Those presses have been there long before I've been there. I'll be there long after.
You can buy microfiche.
Yep. Ooh, microfiche. I remember microfiche.
Yeah.
I think for slides.
Yeah, slides, oh boy. We're showing our age.
Yeah. So with our paper, we want to blot it dry with newsprint. So we want the paper damp, but not soaking wet. And then the paper goes on top. Then we're going to use a little piece of felt that goes on top of the paper. And that helps transfer the pressure from the top roller of the press to your plate and provides a little more cushion. So again, so you're trying to get that pressure into those grooves to get all the ink that you can out of the plate. You can adjust the pressure of the press with these two little screws up top, so it raises and lowers the. Which I might have to do. Wait.
Reminds me of a winter washer.
Oh, yeah.
There we go, age again.
Little print.
Oh, very nice.
wow.
I like that. Yeah, very nice.
See, it's mirrored, but a little landscape. And then with your paper, you want to, again, it's damp, just like chin clay, so you're going to flatten it. It's really small. I don't know if taping it's an option, but at least put it between some newsprint and put some weight on it so it flattens. And then to make another print, just repeat the inking process. You have to add more ink. With the card, wipe it, and then print. So the press works really well. It's designed to be screwed into a tabletop, which will make it a little bit easier to turn, but I'm pretty sure they won't let me screw into these tables. But you can adjust the pressure a little bit, a little tight. But that's dry point.